Hello, everybody. Good afternoon, good morning, whatever, to whoever, wherever you are, to you guys in the States. Congrats on your Biden Harris win.
Good
And
job,
if you're a
guys.
Trump supporter, well, maybe you gotta leave and don't come here to Canada.
If you're a Trump
Um,
supporter, you might have to reevaluate your values and your morals.
Especially with so many BIPOC people around you.
Mm-hmm.
Anyways, welcome to the sixth edition of Brown Girls in the Rain Book Club.
I'm
Today,
Sharanja, aka.
oh,
Oh,
yeah.
I'm Sharanja, aka Books Bounty 28. This is
And I am Anika, aka Fresh Princess 92, and we are your hosts of this
for this
meeting
evening.
and all the other evenings. Today we're going to discuss Luen Yang's American Born Chinese. Amazing, amazing, amazing graphic novel. I think that this should be required reading in all elementary school classes in North America, more
Yeah,
specifically America and Canada.
America and Canada. Actually, like that was a required reading for one of my courses, except it wasn't an elementary school. It was a university English lit class.
Yeah,
And I
but
just
that's
completely fell
an
wrong.
elective basically. Like
Yeah,
you
it's an elective.
I think that this is important, especially in like suburban communities
Mm-hmm.
or like communities that should be having like a little bit more diversity. It's important for kids to know where they come
Oh,
from and to have their sense of
100%.
identity.
And I feel like the medium in which the story is being told will have such a bigger impact on younger kids than having it just be like a regular written novel. Like I
All right.
love the fact that it was in a novel form.
Yes, it makes it so easy to read, especially because it doesn't take up the page. It's just a few panels
Mm-hmm.
each page. I like how you kind of get three stories in one, but they all link back to each other.
Yeah, they all kind of it's three stories, but they all
Intertwine.
converge at the end, and they all have similar themes throughout.
Yeah,
Do you want me to do the like a brief summary of the novel?
sure. Go ahead.
Okay, so to top it off, I think that this story is about learning to accept your heritage and being proud of where you come from. So our main character, well, let's first start off saying that it's three stories, and the first story that we start off with is the Monkey King story, and I believe it's an old Chinese fable, like something that like a family would pass down to each of their generations as like a fairy tale. And in this story, it's about a monkey who masters all the disciplines of kung fu and basically gains all this power to the extent that he believes that he should be a god. So one day he crashes a party in heaven and expecting to be let into this party, he's dismayed because they won't let him in because at the end of the day he's a monkey still. He's not an actual god. So out of rage, he kills all the gods in the party, and as punishment for his crime, the supreme god makes him spend 500 years trapped under a mountain to ponder his mistakes, and he isn't freed until this Buddhist monk comes along to recruit him for another mission. And it is in this process where he's saved by the Buddhist monk that he has to learn humility. He has to learn that he's fine just the way he is. He's not a god, but he's fine just as a monkey. So I think that was the first story. And then the second story is the story of Jin, who is the main, like he's the American born Chinese in the title. So um he is born in the US to recently immigrated parents from China. They moved to an all white neighborhood, and it's only here that he realizes that there's something wrong with the way that he was raised. his new classmates make fun of the way he looks, his name.
Treasure.
They actually said, my mom told me that Chinese people eat dogs for lunch. So this sort of influences the way that he sees himself at school and how his classmates see him as someone who is an other. And he's actually bullied because of his otherness. And things don't really change for him until he gets a new friend in the form of Wei Chan, who recently moved to the States from Taiwan. At first glance, Jin doesn't want to really be friends with this person because he doesn't speak English. He's like the atypical fresh off the boat fob. But
he's kind of mean to him because the same way that others had treated him before, he starts to treat his new friend.
He starts to treat Wei Chan that way because he thinks that it will give him an in with the popular white kids. But I think it's like over a shared love of Transformers that these two sort of bond.
Hence why he's holding that.
Hence why he's holding that. So they bond over Transformers and they actually become best friends. But over the years, Jin still struggles with his multifaceted identity of being Chinese and American. Like he wants to assimilate into American culture, but Wei Chan represents everything that he dislikes about himself. So he kind of ends up pushing Wei Chan away, like belittling him for what he is. And that's the main struggle of his story. And then the third story is, I don't know. So it's the story of Chinky.
Sharanja, I don't know if it's just me, but I feel like you're like buffering type of thing. I don't know if anybody else is having that problem either. But yeah.
It's probably me because I'm cutting in and out. But do you want to try adding me in and like adding me out and in?
Taking you out? Okay, hold on.
Yeah.
I'm gonna take you out. I'm gonna add you in.
Okay, so the third story is the story of Danny and Chin-Ki, who Danny is an all-white American teenager, like the creme de la creme popular high school boy. And Chin-Ki is his Chinese cousin who visits every once in a while. But the thing is, Danny is very, very embarrassed when Chin-Ki comes to town because Chin-Ki is like every stereotype about a Chinese person since the 1800s, that is Chin-Ki.
Well, I mean, listen to his name.
Yes, I think that's intentional, obviously. That's intentional. But Danny's story is more about growing to accept his roots as well. And like I said, all three stories sort of converge at the end into one story. And it comes down to Jin sort of accepting who he is and also repairing his friendship with Wei Chan.
Winnie.
Yes.
We got Chin-Ki and Winnie.
We got Chin-Ki and Winnie. He's here. My own little Chin-Ki. But yeah, that is for those who have not met him yet, this is my child. He says good day. But yeah, I love the fact that we got more than one story in this novel, and the fact that they all had overlapping themes. They all dealt with the same sort of theme of being discontent with who you are and transforming yourself into being something that you're not. And the fact that happiness still doesn't come even when you made that change.
Okay. So, obviously, some themes that we have in here is sense of identity and trying to find that, or the struggle and balance between trying to balance two identities. So, this summary was kind of long, but it was needed.
It was a long story. Sorry, guys.
Which is weird because it's a small book, but it had a longer summary than our past books.
Yeah, it's the fact that there was a lot of things jump like packed into the
Intricacies.
story.
Yeah. Yeah, so what is I saying about identity? So I feel like probably you and I could both identify a little bit with this story because you and I are both first generation Canadians, the same way that he's a first generation American. And I don't know about you, but I personally felt kind of like a culture shock coming from Toronto to Durham.
Oh yeah, 100%.
And like I feel like it's not the type of culture shock that you would expect of me. Because my culture shock wasn't like the whole going from private school to public school thing. My culture shock was literally like, because like my experience with private school, I should say, because a lot of people think that it's just, oh, it's predominantly white, it's all white people. But I felt like in private school, I had more diversity in my classroom than coming to school, than going to public school outside of Toronto. Because when I went to public school, it was just like, okay, what's going on here?
Well, for me, where I was growing up and going to school in Scarborough, I would have to say that I was part of the majority. Like Sri Lankan Tamils were just like the majority in the school that I went, so I didn't feel out of place in that
The whole
way.
area.
The whole area. So there were certain questions that like were never asked of me when I was going to school in Scarborough. Like, why is your last name your dad's first name? Like, what is that? Like, what are you having for lunch? Like, what is that? Like, certain things that like because everyone that I went to school with had either
that shared identity.
had that shared identity or at least had that awareness of other
So
people.
it was kind of like Scarborough, or our area of Scarborough was like was it San Francisco?
Mm-hmm.
It was like the San Francisco Chinatown.
And then me moving to Durham, where like majority, it was pretty much majority white, and then everyone else. And like it wasn't even the fact that it was just like a, a cultural change. It was also an economical change because the area that I was living in Scarborough, there were a lot more working class, lower income people versus the area I live in now in Pickering. It was like there was a lot more wealth in the area, so you would see that in the students who are coming to school as well. I remember people being made fun of for wearing like certain clothing, which like that never happened in my old school because we were all poor anyway, so who are you going to make fun of? But
Yeah, and like the thing is too, especially because for high school, there's only 3 high schools in the city, one of which is Catholic. So there's 2 public, 1 Catholic. So the areas that everybody's coming for to go to the schools is big. So for our high school, some of them could have, like, some of the kids could have been like from like the poorer areas, and then like there's people like us who are like in the middle class, but then there's kids who like their houses are like huge and they
they're like
got like
mansions, yeah,
tennis courts out back and everything, and it's like it's
and they
just
had
it's so
cars,
close to us. So it's
and
like
they were
when we used
driving
to,
cars to school.
yeah, because it's like when you and I used to go for our jogs just like last year, we'd pass like these big houses and like these people with immense wealth, and I'd be like, yo, Sharanja, I wonder what they do for work. Like, what kind of job did they have? Can I get that?
Yeah, and because of where we were now in Durham, there was also a lot less cultural awareness, cultural understanding. Like I had to deal with people who constantly mispronounced my name and wouldn't even try to adapt to learning the name. It would always just be like, "Oh, can we just call you Shar or Sarah? Like, do you guys have an easier name?" Like that happened to me a lot in the 4 years, like Sarah. Well, now I use Sarah in my Starbucks, but um regardless, like it was just very weird to me that there wasn't that cultural understanding of like learning, like you should learn how to pronounce someone's name as a way of respect, or even just like you have 2 brown people in the room and then you automatically assume that they are the same, but they could easily just speak 2 different languages, be from 2 different countries, but because you're both brown and they see you as that you're automatically lumped into one group.
Yeah. It's true. Or it's like, oh, you just automatically like assumed that you guys are going to be friends.
Mm-hmm. And I do remember this didn't happen in like high school, not in my memory at least, but I do remember when I was in middle school, there was at least like one student who was like freshly arrived from abroad, and you could tell it in the way that they spoke, in the way that they dressed, and it was like everyone tried to avoid that person like the plague, because they felt that if you were to become friends with that person, your social standing would also like fall because of your friendship, your association with this Bob, for lack of a better word.
For high school, I remember that we did have a lot of international students. And I remember that there was one particular girl who was in our grade, and she was, I'm not sure like what type of Asian she was. I don't think she was from China, but might have been like Taiwan or Vietnam, because I don't think it was Korea either. But she, because like a lot of times like they try to assimilate themselves, so they give themselves an English name. So I remember that throughout high school, she probably changed her English name like 3-4 times.
Yeah.
And then like I feel like she had a difficulty in making friends, because probably, as you said, with the whole thing, and also like a lot of people had their friends already and they just continued their friendships. And she like always like tried to be my friend in class, and I like would try, like I'd be nice to her as normal, but like I just feel like the connection wasn't really there, because like in this story, the two of them connected because they had a similarity.
Yeah.
And like I feel like she
it.
needed someone like that.
Yeah. It's, you know what, high school is really hard to survive in, especially when you're the only one who looks like you or thinks like you. So that felt to me very relatable in the book. What do you so what in what ways do you think the concept of like transformation is represented in the book? Because we're talking about his love for Transformers, like the toy. I feel like that fits into the overall theme of the book, because in every story you have like a symbol of transformation, where you have the Monkey King who tries to transform himself into a god. You know, he goes from walking on 4 feet to 2 feet. He increases his size. In the third story, you have Chinky, who is, spoiler alert, actually the Monkey King coming to, spoiler alert, Danny, who was actually, spoiler alert, Jin.
Wait, you forgot the other spoiler alert is that the Monkey King was going to visit his son, which is,
spoiler alert,
the friend.
So you have like that theme of like people trying to change themselves into something that they think is acceptable, and then once they get to that state of what they think is acceptable, they're still not happy.
So an example of that would be like Jin. He wanted to like be a part of like American culture, so he liked this white girl. But then he saw like that this white guy was like always around her and was friends with her, and that he had like curly hair. So he went and permed his hair curly, trying to change to be like this white boy. And then
and I have to say that white boy looked like Justin Timberlake from NSYNC with his macaroni hair.
Yeah, that's where am I looking? Oh, here. Sure, this backwards thing is confusing.
Yeah.
And then this is him as Danny.
Who very much resembles like
as a white man, the white boy. Also, I liked how in the book, it's not just set in one period of time where he's a kid with his Transformers. It follows him as he becomes a teenager and then an adult.
Yeah. Like I like that part too.
It shows that his struggle for identity is a long period of time.
Mm-hmm.
It's not
Like
just something that you struggle with like when you're a kid,
yeah.
or like in your adolescence. It's a
And it
lifelong
also
struggle.
shows that if you don't deal with that stuff early on, that it actually gets worse as you get older. Like your self-esteem actually suffers for it like when you're an adult.
Trust me, let me tell you, I learned about this stuff in
Story time
school.
about how my
Oh, wow.
friend in high school tried.
Yeah, all about trauma and not resolving your trauma as a child follows you into your adulthood, and how you can have intergenerational trauma. So how your trauma or your parents' trauma affects you or your children.
Mm-hmm.
And you need to resolve that stuff, or else you might turn to substances or other behaviors that are not so kind.
Yeah.
And these said traumas and these said whatever can affect your mental health and your mental wellness.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, you're 100% right. It can definitely develop into a larger problem for yourself. It can prevent you from putting yourself out there in terms of like a job or making friends. So what I want to ask you, what do you think the title means?
American born Chinese?
Yeah,
That
in relation to like actual meaning and the meaning of the whole story.
okay, I'm gonna tell you. So, American born Chinese. It's saying that, okay, regardless of where you are born, you are what your parents are, you are like what your culture is.
Mm-hmm.
You're more than just where you're born, right?
Mm-hmm.
So it's like I know this is an example where obviously we know that like Trinidad and Guyana have a lot of East Indian people. So they're like Guyanese Indian or Trinidadian Indian is what they call them.
Mm-hmm.
But a lot of times the people from India and them, they don't see those people as true Indians, even
Mm-hmm.
if they preserve their culture so deep to a point where like they don't interbreed with other races, and they like
Mm-hmm.
they continue the traditions and everything. They don't see them as true Indians, but the thing is, they are.
They still are by like DNA and blood.
And culture too.
Yeah.
Or even like, I know because my mom used to work downtown Toronto with a lot of like the ESL students who were coming, and like it was their first time to Canada and whatnot. So she had this conversation with them before, and they're saying that those people aren't real Indians, blah 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 blah. But then she turned to them and said, "Okay, but what about your children? Your children were born here in Canada, so they're not real Indians." So like, yeah, they are, because I'm a real Indian and I gave birth to them. And my mom's like, "But it's the same thing.
Mm-hmm.
Those people that you're saying aren't real, their grandparents or their parents or wherever had come, and they preserved their everything."
Yeah, I feel like with
It's
what you're saying though, well, transformation is a part of growing up through the school system. Yeah, Sean's right. It is a big
yeah.
part of growing up, but there's also transforming for the right reasons versus the wrong reasons, and I feel like people change themselves in high school for the wrong reason. Um, Anika, what you were saying right now, I feel like a lot of what you were saying, especially with Indians who are born in the West Indies, some of it has to do a with like anti-blackness and the idea of like
Definitely.
and the idea of like with mixing with people with from other cultures, which what that is what the West Indies is too, right? It's a lot of like mixing with different cultures, different people, right? So I don't want to say Indians because I'm not Indian, but like a lot of people from like South Asian cultures are very against the idea of mixing with other people, because once you do that, you lose your own culture, and you're not necessarily like Indian anymore or like Sri Lankan anymore. You're just like a mix.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so what I thought the title meant with American Born Chinese, I thought it talks about two things. It talks about like people who are born abroad, like Chinese people who are born abroad in other states, in other countries, but the fact that regardless of wherever you're born, you're still Chinese. And I thought, secondly, it also goes back to how Jin feels throughout the book, in the fact that he's American born and Chinese, but he's confused about the two, because yes, he's Chinese, but he wants to assimilate. He wants to be able to fit into where he is. So it's about his confusion of his identities. And speaking of which, like, there is a similar term to this when we talk about like Desi people. So Desi people are people who are typically like Indian, Pakistani, Indian and Pakistani.
Girl, you cut in and out again.
American.
Hold on. Let me take you out real quick. And then let me put you in real quick. And now she gone real quick.
Frozen.
I'm not frozen, you black.
Am I black right now?
You were, but I can see you now.
Okay, yeah, it's cutting in and out.
So yeah, you're talking about Desi people.
Yeah, so there's a similar term to this, which is American-born confused Desi. So it's pretty much like the same term in terms of like meaning, in the fact that like you have these Desi people who are born abroad, and they're American, they're Canadian born, but the fact is they're still Indian at the end of the day. They'll never shake off their Indianness. And it's about the fact that they have competing identities. So you have like the back home identity, and then the identity of the area that you're living in. So it's always a confusion of like, who am I? What do I do to fit in? And how do I not lose my heritage?
Do you feel like you identify as this?
No,
In this?
not really. So in ways, yeah, but it's the fact that because of where I grew up, I've always been around Sri Lankan people. It's only been like in my recent adult life that I've had to deal with the complexities of dealing with like white people or people who are just not part of my culture. So there are things that happen in the book that I relate to, in terms of people, like I think it was like in the his first day of school with Jin, the fact that his teacher automatically introduced him as being from China instead of San Francisco. So,
and how she kept saying, giving him a different name. Same with when his friend came in.
Same with when his friends came in. So I've had instances like that happen to me, where people just automatically assumed I wasn't from Canada, and just automatically assumed that like I was from another country. Like I've gotten so many times where people come up to me and say, "Oh, your English is so good. Why wouldn't it be good? This is like the only language that I really know how to speak."
That, oh my gosh, Sharanja, that reminds me. Do you remember in high school how our friend, let's call her Kay, every year, you know how at the beginning of every year you had your like, not your registration form, but like just basically like your name, where your address, like where you're born, blah blah blah, just for the records.
Yeah.
And how they kept changing her language to Urdu, even though the only language she knows is English, because she's from Trinidad. You remember that?
Yeah, no, I remember that. That's just like a poor administration job.
They tried to put her into ESL. The girl basically majored in English.
That happened to me too when I was a little kid. I don't know if I told you that, but they put me in ESL too when I was little, because I was quiet and I didn't really like talking in class. They automatically assumed it was because I couldn't speak English. So they put me in ESL for like 1 or 2 weeks, and then they figured out that like she knows how to speak English just fine. She's just timid, and then they put me back in the regular class. But
that's kind of a detriment, because then you're missing out on socialization within your correct classroom.
Yeah, but that's the thing that happens with a lot of immigrant children or kids of color, because that same thing also happened to my nephew who was born here, and he was also like me in that fact that like he's just quiet. He doesn't really like talking in class, but they put him in ESL for a bit too, just to see if he's actually struggling or if he's just quiet.
That's like, I know a lot of people who immigrate, especially from the Caribbean, they are either put into ESL classes or maybe not so much now, but I know before they just used to like put them back a grade. When in fact, the education system there is better than it is here. So in fact, they would actually be ahead in a grade, not behind a grade. But it's just like, what are you doing?
Listen, our education system does a lot of things to impede the growth of kids. So
That's
I'm not
why
surprised.
sometimes homeschooling might be the best option, but I don't think I'm able to homeschool nobody's child, including my own.
Well, up until this year, there were a lot of people who thought the way you did, and now they're homeschooling their kids.
Yeah, they're homeschooling their kids, but are their kids thriving?
We won't know until like they're older and see how well they do on like standardized testing.
Or their ability to read and write.
Or their ability to read and write. Like I feel like with kindergarten, it doesn't make a big deal because all they do is learn ABC, 1, 2, 3s, right? So you can, with the help of
That's
your
the thing.
parent.
That we should be learning that stuff in preschool.
Not all kids go to
I was
preschool,
learning
though.
to read at the age of 5. My 5th birthday, I have from my 5th birthday where my mom's like, we're teaching her to read because I don't want her to start 1st grade not knowing how to read. And I remember sitting there doing my phonics and doing everything. It's like,
Well,
it's on you as a parent to make sure that your child is going to thrive and succeed in life.
some parents are just not good at teaching, though. They don't want to have that responsibility on
Some
them.
parents are just whatless.
So going back to the book, so give me like what are some examples do you think that what are some examples of how Jin was made to feel othered by his classmates in the book?
Hold on, let me pull up the receipts. All right, so how you had said about the eating dog.
Yep, the eating the dog.
When
Actually, let me get my receipts too.
When they're saying that him and the Japanese girl were related or something.
Were related, and that not that they were just related, that they had an arranged marriage.
The white kids not wanting to play with him at lunch or recess and calling him bucktoot. Him making his first friend, but it wasn't really a friend. The guy was just bullying him, and he accepted that as a friend.
Yeah, because it's better than being alone, right?
A
big example of that white kid who prevented him from dating the girl that he liked, basically saying that
the same kid that he was trying to be like.
He was trying to be like him saying that like if she dates you, her status is gonna go down. Like she really needs to think about who she's gonna be hanging out with because we're gonna be in high school soon.
And the sad thing is that the girl really genuinely liked him.
Yeah, no, she really she liked him for who he was.
For who he was.
And the reason why she was even interested in dating him is because of how Wei Chan talked about him to her.
And then the thing is, it's like he totally let everything mess with his head to a point where he did something that he should not have ever done, and that was go kiss on his best friend's girl. And then that totally ruined his relationship with his best friend.
It wasn't even that. It was also some of the things that he said to Wei Chan when Wei Chan went to go confront Jin. I don't even think he was super mad about kissing the girl. He was just like, if you had told me you liked her, then I would have accepted that. But why would you go and kiss her without telling me anything?
Yeah.
And I'm trying to get the actual quote of what he said to Wei Chan.
And then also how he's let this sense of identity and what was the Chin Ki, when he lets like Chin Ki, like every year he comes and then it causes him to change schools every year because he can't deal with people seeing him in that way.
Yeah. it goes back to a lot of people who are ashamed of the culture that they're from. So did you see all the like different Chinese stereotypes that Chin-Ki brought
For
about in the story?
Chin-Ki?
Like
Yeah.
the number one thing that I recognized
the
was
big
like the
teeth.
William Hung. Like there's a part in the story where Chin-Ki is like dancing and singing in the library, I think. And
Yeah.
he's specifically referencing like William Hung's American Idol audition where he sings
She bang, she bang.
she bang, ooh baby. Like it's literally every single stereotype that you could have thought of in this one character.
Even like the crispy fried cat gizzards with noodle.
Yep. And like all the references to eating animals, like dogs and other creatures.
Or how he pranked the guy by peeing in his Coke.
Mm-hmm. But it's interesting it's interesting when you think about that it's this character that when he reveals his true form, he's the one that sort of gets Jin to see that what he's been doing in the past few years, how he's been treating Wei Chan is wrong, and the fact that like he needs to sort of accept who he is in order to become like a good person again. And on another note, let's talk about Wei Chan for a bit, because once he gets into that argument with Jin, and then he sort of says like, I'm not about humans anymore. I'm not about like being loyal to them anymore. He just sort of changes his identity as well and becomes like this fake
White boy.
I don't even know what it was, but he was wearing a lot of like hip hop attire.
Oh, you mean at the end?
At
Yeah,
the
yeah,
end.
yeah. Well, I mean, not to stereotype, but a lot of Asians are like that.
Yeah.
Like, honestly and truly, them Asians are the biggest sneakerheads, and
They do like their
all
sneakers.
they have all the best latest fashions, the streetwear fashions and stuff. They stay on
Kind
point.
of It kind of reminded me of like Fast and the Furious Tokyo Drift. But I like that they sort of made up at a bubble tea place.
Yeah, and a
Cute.
real one at that. It's like, nah, this one's not good. I'm gonna take you to the real spot.
Yeah. So, do you think that this story worked well as a graphic novel, or could it have been made better as an actual full-length novel?
I feel like it was great as a graphic novel because we were able to get the visual representation on a page.
Mhm.
So like not just like seeing these stereotypes by your mind's eye, but seeing it with your actual eyeballs.
Yeah, like there were certain things that were going on in the panel that I feel like you wouldn't have been able to explain that in a book. Like every time, so the whole story with Danny and Chinky, every time that Chinky came into a panel, it was almost like a sitcom. Like every time he showed up, you would see at the bottom of the panel, ha 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 ha, so like an audience laughing. And it wasn't even like he said anything funny. It was just literally every time he showed
And
up, ha 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 ha. Like
yeah.
this like caricature of a Chinese person is so funny that he just has to exist, and it's funny.
And he's like yellow, like
Like he's
he's
yellow,
this is
yellow.
his color.
Yeah,
Yellow.
yeah. Like that whole storyline with Chinky and Danny. It was pretty much like we were reading a sitcom. Like you have that, like you know those sitcoms where you have
Honestly, when I was reading it before the ending was shown to us that it's actually Jin, I thought that it was just like a comedy that Jin was watching on TV.
like same. So like it reminded me of like those episodes on sitcoms where you have like the main character who's just like a normal everyday person, but then they have a cousin who comes in from out of town and they're like either a hillbilly or a hick or just like just so different from the actual person. They provide like comic relief. Like it felt like I was reading an episode like that.
Yeah.
Also, guys, if you're interested, Girlfriends is dropping on Netflix Friday. So if you're into like good like mid 2000s sitcoms, you should check it out. I love that show.
Sister's on right now.
And Sister's on right now
But
too. And that's
also, Sharanja, you know, the only person in our chat is Sean, and he's had this since August. America's had those shit since August on Netflix.
Well, Americans are kind of spoiled in terms of their Netflix. They just get all the good movies, all the good TV shows first because of rights.
Heck is that's not the only thing they're spoiled with. America's spoiled with almost everything.
Yeah, in terms of like
their presidents.
Well, now they're not to say that like Joe Biden and Kamala Harris are like the best of the best, but I feel like this is a step in the right direction.
I'm not gonna say anything until 6 months in. So I'm not gonna say anything until June to see what's actually happening.
I feel like
Dad, TC.
Dad.
TC, you know that Trump's your favorite guy. You know you be fighting those people hard on Facebook, saying, I'm a Trump supporter. Part of them, All Lives Matter.
All Lives Matter crew. Make America great again. Make Florida great again.
Motherfucker.
Oh my gosh.
I forget what we were saying.
Yeah, me too.
Why is it like he's moaning?
Anika, do you remember that YouTube video? Do you remember it? That was such a huge that you just put it up on the screen. Like where you were saying like he looks like he's moaning.
No, what video was that?
That was such a that was like one of the first popular YouTube videos of all time.
You're such a troll.
All votes matter. All votes count.
Just a disclaimer, TC does not actually hold these views.
No.
Let me just put that out there.
No. I can't believe it.
Well, no, because I know he always comes and he trolls and he's worried that people actually think that he believes these things. He doesn't.
What are you saying? Yeah, so
we're talking about this video.
That is like one of the most popular original YouTube videos of all time. Like it was the original cover. Like,
but what happens in the video?
They're pretty much just like lip syncing to Backstreet Boys. I Want It That Way, but it was so funny that it was like a super hit. But so it's an old video too. It's like really old. Chinese
I want to point out these parallels that I just realized when I was flipping through. Okay, so you know how Jin goes and like kisses what's her face?
Suzy Nakamura.
That same one.
Yeah.
So he goes and betrays his best friend. But yet, when what's the friend's name?
Wei Chan?
Yes, when Wei Chan is in the same kind of predicament where he's locked in the room with the white girl, he talks up his friend to her. He does not betray his best friend. So like that's just a parallel to see like what kind of people we dealing with here.
Yeah. Jin is kind of a tool, but it also goes back to him just being so like down on himself, like very, very confused at the same time. Like I don't think he kissed Suzy because he liked her. He just kissed her because that was a girl who seemed like she was an option that this might be a person who might like me because they like Wei Chan.
I feel like it's definitely that, because remember, before Wei Chan came, he absolutely despised Susie.
But so I saw that a bit differently. It's one of those things where you see, if you're like a brown person in a room full of white people, and then all of a sudden there's another brown person who enters the room, you do absolutely the most to stay away from each other, because you don't want people to think that, like, oh, the brown people are hanging around, she must be like her, they must be like her, they must be family. Like, there's a lot of like negative connotations that come around when you see two people from the same ethnicity hanging out with each other. And you guys are the
That's
only
funny,
people.
because I know your personal story of high school again, how our friend just approached you out of nowhere and asked if you're Tamil, and that's how your friendship started.
Yeah, that was yeah. We basically became friends because we were the only two Tamil people in school. But in adult life, you don't necessarily see that same type of reaching out.
But these guys were kids, they were children, so you would think that that would be what happens.
Not always.
Bind together.
Especially with the way that their classmates were treating them. They literally said, "Oh, Susie and Jin, they must know each other. They must be related." Or I heard that Susie and Jin actually have an arranged marriage, and that they've been arranged to be married since they were young. Like, stupid little negative rumors like that. It's an actual thing. I'm not making it up.
I'm not saying that you're making it up.
Or if you get like two brown people in the same room, I'm just saying brown people because I'm brown, but like, shocking, I know. But you get two brown people who are hanging out together, and then all of a sudden
say that.
you get two brown people who are hanging out together, and all of a sudden you have an interloper come in and say, "Are you guys related? You guys look related." I know you
Don't get me
recently
started.
dealt with that, but that has happened to me quite a few times already. Like, I remember when I was in, like, a lot of things just happened to me in high school, but when I was walking down the hallway with my best friend Nagma, she does not look anything like me, but we actually had a teacher come up to us and say, "Is that your sister?"
Oh, look, it's my brother.
Oh, it's your brother.
Yeah. Hey, Georgie.
Hi, Greg. Yeah, like Greg and Anika.
Exactly, like Greg and Anika, because apparently we're brother and sister.
Yeah, so that happens quite a lot.
Georgie and Anika.
Yeah, I have no words to say about that, about the person who thought you two look alike. You guys do not look alike at all.
And the sad thing is that it was not the first time it happened. Somebody else a few years ago asked us this.
I don't know what to tell you other than that's just a pattern.
But yes, somebody asked if you and Nagma were related.
A teacher asked if me and Nama were related, and if you were a teacher,
Wow.
let me just say this right now. That teacher was kind of problematic to begin with, but he asked us if we were related, and we're just like, do we don't even look alike? It was Couchich.
Of course he would say that.
Yeah. But that was just one instance with Nangma. That's happened to me with other brown friends they're not even Tamil, they're not even Sri Lankan, they're just like Indian or like whatever ethnicity, and I've gotten people come up to us and say, "Are you cousins? Are you guys sisters? Are you guys family?" Like, no, we're just hanging out, we're friends. Yeah. No, he was trolling for sure. He
was a troller.
He was a troller for sure, but he said quite a few problematic things that you shouldn't be telling to someone who's like a teenager. Side note.
Oh, you have another side note?
I just want to reiterate, you don't look like Greg, and Greg doesn't look like you.
I know. Greg straight up looks like his sister.
I believe you. It's just weird that someone would just come up. Like, why would you go up to someone at a store where they're working and just be like, you look like each other? Like, I don't understand.
No,
I never make.
this person works at the store too. It's not a
Oh, they
customer.
work at the store.
Yeah.
Oh, I thought it was a customer.
No, and like, so she sees us all the time, and she's like, she felt like she always thought that we were related and blah blah blah. But when we were like, no, then she's
Even
like,
if
oh,
you're related, like what brother and sister just hangs out with each other like that
there's
at
some
work?
people who do.
I guess I wouldn't do that. Not with my brothers. Because you live together, so.
Um, yeah, but then she went on to be like, oh, like you're such a good couple, blah blah blah. God bless you, and blah blah blah.
She literally thought you guys were committing incest.
Oh my gosh. It's true. She's like, oh, are you brother and sister, or are you dating? This is what I get for going over to produce and talking to Greg. Oh my gosh. Nah, not Denzel. What's the girl from Mississippi Masala? That one.
Oh, Sarita Chowdhury. I love that movie.
So I'm her from the back with my
Your hair
haircut.
needs to be a little bit longer
That's what I said with my haircut.
with your haircut. We should watch that movie. I love that movie. Gregory does not look like Denzel, though, I have to say.
From the back.
Not even from the back. Maybe like Chris Tucker.
We're the budget versions. Oh my gosh,
Ooh,
TC. I don't even know
don't
what her name is.
don't say her name. This is
I don't know
live.
her name is really. Actually, okay, TC, I think her name might be the same as my name on Facebook. So my middle name.
She might be watching this if she has you on Instagram.
She doesn't.
Okay.
Yes. What was we saying? Oh, Gregory, you there? I know that you read the book, so what thoughts or feelings do you have about the book?
Greg read the book?
Yeah, I told him to read it. He read it in 3 days' time.
He's not even there.
Gregory, I know you're there. Anyways, as he figures himself out and writes whatever, let us continue.
Anika, this is kind of related to the book, but not because it's not really discussed. Have you ever heard of the term yellow fever?
I know that's an actual fever. It's an actual sickness.
I'm not talking about the actual sickness. It's a cultural concept.
That's all you have to say? Is it like the fetishization of the Asian peoples? Obviously doesn't.
Obviously, I don't. Actually, no. I watched Gregory's
No, not
last
you,
one.
the person.
Oh, I thought they were talking about me. Oh, never mind. I did
But
watch
yes,
Gregory's last video. I don't know
yellow
if I'm allowed
fever.
to. Oh, the yellow fever. But wait, on a side note, Gregory, I did watch your last video, but I don't know if I'm allowed to participate in the giveaway because you know me.
Sharanja, every single person that's commented, we know it's TC,
Okay.
Sean.
Okay. So yes, I will be putting my
and
name
then
down for one of those
and
issues.
then Carla, which is raising 3 wolves.
Okay.
She's the only other person.
Okay, I will be participating then.
Yeah, we don't have to pay for postage. I could deliver it to your door.
Even better. Okay, so back to yellow fever. So it's a cultural concept. It's about the rate of Asian women who go out with white men and vice versa. And it goes back to saying like the attractiveness of like Asian men. It's not like the way that we view Asian men in society is not like they're not necessarily like sexual symbols. Like you don't really see them in the top 10 of like sexiest men alive, which is it's the way that we're sort of taught to view them in a way, but you don't get that with Asian women.
I mean, that might slightly change Shang-Chi. Oh wait, now I'm the frozen one. Sure. Let me remove my.
Oh,
Let me come back. Why am I black? Well, blacker. Why can't I see myself? Can you see me? I don't see
I
me.
can't see you, but I can hear you.
Hello? Why can't I not see myself?
Um,
Okay.
yeah, now you're back.
Yeah, as I was saying, the whole Shang-Chi thing, because people think he hot like fire.
So it's more or less like an Asian fetish. But
Basically.
this book kind of reminded me of that because Jin doesn't see himself as someone who's worth dating, at least when it comes to him wanting to date this white girl that's in his class. Oh, you're frozen again. Oh,
I'm
no.
not frozen.
Well, you're frozen on my end, but hold on.
Am I still
Oh,
frozen?
yeah. Nope, fixed it. But yeah, it's like an Asian fetish, but I don't think it was kind of like touched upon in this book in the fact that like he doesn't see himself as someone who's worthy to date, especially when it comes to dating like a white person. But I don't know if you've noticed it before, but I see a lot of Asian women who date outside their race, but not
Definitely.
necessarily like Asian men who date outside their race. That makes sense.
Definitely. And I have an example, which I'm using this as an example because I see it all the time to the point where like I realize it's in my face. So I'm gonna talk specifically about Filipinos. You see so many Filipino women dating black men, white men, or like Indian men, but like most times you see Filipino men with just Filipino women.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, maybe
Like,
and it goes back to like the sexualization of Asian men in our society. We're just not trained to see them as like in a sexual light or like objects of desire. Like who's always
yeah,
at the top of the pyramid when it comes to like
white.
sex symbols? White, and then black, and then brown, and then like
No,
Asian,
I
I
think
guess.
brown is higher than black.
Yeah, and so, yeah,
And I think Asian's higher than black too.
I don't know. Idris Elba is pretty hot. I'm
Yeah,
missing
that's for
your
you,
time.
not me. He's not my cup of tea, or coffee, or milk, or hot cocoa.
I know what your cup of coffee is, and his name is Gregory.
Sure, yeah.
Yeah.
Greg doesn't really drink tea, so he's not my cup of tea. The only cup of tea he could be is my what's it called? Cardamom chai. The
Oh
kind
my
where you just add water because it already has the powdered milk and sugar in there.
god. um, any closing thoughts on the book?
Um, Great book. It should be required reading. Everyone should buy this for their children to read, aka Christmas gifts, people.
Christmas gifts. Make this required reading in an elementary school for sure.
Make this required reading in your home for your homeschooling or for their extracurriculars.
Oh, definitely. Me reading this book has made me really like Luen Yang. I searched him up on on Google, and I realized that he actually has written a lot of like Avatar: The Last Airbender comics. He's doing like I think he's doing like the new run for Shang-Chi. And yeah, so he's actually a really good artist and writer. So I'll definitely check out some more.
Somebody actually recommended one of his books to me. It was, hold on, let me pull it up. It was Tacoma Comics, and they recommended The Boxer Rebellion.
Boxer Rebellion. Yeah, so there's another recommendation right there, Boxer Rebellion by Luen Yang. So yeah, guys, check him out. He's a great writer, great artist. Yeah, and I just want to finish this off saying this is a wonderful book. If you want to give this as a gift to anyone, if a kid especially, definitely do it. It's a good read. It's a good thought-provoking read.
I would say this book is good for ages 9, you know?
Yeah, I would say this is a good read for like middle school, high school, even like freaking adults. Adults could read this and have a good time.
Yeah, we're adults.
Yeah, we're adults.
Kind of.
We are. I'm almost middle-aged. Joking. I'm only 29, but
if 30 is middle-aged.
29. Haven't hit 30 yet.
No, I'm saying, you're saying you're almost middle-aged. So I'm saying if 30 is middle-aged, people are living a lot longer. So that means that the middle age has been pushed up too. So like 50 is middle-aged now.
Hopefully. If Corona 55. Don't get me. If COVID don't get me, I'll hopefully live to 100.
Just do what Trump said and put something in your
Put some bleach. That's not a joke, actually. People actually listened to him and they did it. And I think one person actually died from drinking bleach.
You have to have some sense.
You have to have sense, but like you also shouldn't tell people to do stuff and then backtrack and say it was a joke when you didn't say it like it was a joke.
Listen, I ain't defending Donnie, but the thing is, you can't have that sheep mentality and just do whatever somebody says. Like you need to have critical thinking.
Listen, it's just some people are just not born with the capability to critically think. But
that's why they're getting weeded out.
But at the same time,
your stupidity weeds you out.
But if you're in the White House and you're the president, you have a certain level of care that you owe to your base, and you shouldn't be spreading stupid rumors like that without proper founded scientific information to back it up.
Also, this is a question that I was thinking about today. I'm like, to become the president, do you have to go through like any kind of like medical stuff?
You do have to do a base medical exam to say that you're in shape for sure.
Because I've been hearing some things that people think that Biden is in early stages of dementia. How is that going to work? He's not going to last the 4 years, much as he might last 2.
But that's not medical. That's not proven though. People were saying that about Hillary Clinton. People were saying that about
That's
Donald
why
Trump.
I'm asking, like, do you have to go through like a medical something?
You
like
do
before you take office, you have to do a series of testings to make sure that you're capable of this. Because if he does have early signs or whatever, the stress of the job is going to definitely affect him.
Listen, I'm not here to comment on the intelligence of the Trump base, but
you drink tea, Greg? Okay. Then you can be my cup of tea with my side of cinnamon roll. Because you are the personification of a cinnamon roll.
Anika, I wanted to ask you a question. So since Saturday, there's just been an explosion of memes about Kamala Harris. Yesterday was Saturday. So since yesterday, there's been just like a explosion of memes online about Kamala Harris being the first Black VP in the White House, and it's just like what I want to say is people are focusing on so much on the fact that she's like the first Indian, but they're completely ignoring the fact that she's also Black. It's just like I've seen so many memes of her with like a sari on or doing Bhangra. First of all, she's Indian, but she's also Tamil. Tamils don't do Bhangra. But I wanted to get your thought on that.
I feel like it's probably just obviously because you're Tamil and the people that you follow will be like a lot of those people. Because I find that on my feed, I'm seeing a lot of Black girl in the White House and
Yeah.
like, yes, first Black girl and all that stuff. I find that I'm seeing not enough representation of her being brown and more of her being Black.
Yeah, and I'm seeing the opposite.
Yeah. So I think it's just like the people that you have on your feed. Because obviously on my feed, I have a lot of Black things.
I sent you the one where it's a meme of her like getting into the White House and she goes into the kitchen and she says, "All the Caucasians to the back, immediately, immediately." And then she gets, and then it's just like a lineup of like like Jamaican and Indian aunties like walking into the kitchen with their ingredients, and she's like,
Yeah, because
"It
you
looks
gotta
better
have that
already."
oxtail on deck. Exactly, TC. Me too. She gotta have the oxtail. She gotta have the the curry. She gotta have the roti. She gotta have the the ackee and saltfish. The
Hmm.
dumpling. All of
Um,
it.
it's not even like the fact that she's like the first woman of color in the White House. I think she's like the first person of color in general to have like a presidential or VP role, right? Other
Obama.
than Barack Obama, yeah.
Um. Well, Shirley Chisholm or whatever her name is tried. Like she was the first to run
Hmm.
for it. So I think maybe Kamala would be like the first elected if you're not counting like Michelle being in the White House.
Yeah.
Like
I think there's a movie coming out about Shirley Chisholm with the girl from Orange is the New Black, Uzo.
Crazy Eyes.
Her name, I like her name. Uza
Her name's
Uzo
Uzo.
Aduba.
Yeah,
Uzo Aduba. I think she's playing the main role.
that should be interesting. Oh wait, I forgot to give you like a major story from this week. So I think I've told Greg this story, and maybe TC had heard parts of it. But Sharanja, I nearly reached through my screen and choked a girl out in class. An Asian girl, an Asian woman. So you know that class is being done through Zoom, and
Hmm.
in Zoom you can do breakout rooms. So in class they put us into breakout rooms to discuss these things. So the topic of discussion for this lecture was Black mental health. And obviously I'm big on Black mental health. Anyways, so I'm put into this breakout room with me, this Asian woman, um, this white woman, girl, whatever, around my age, and then this Chinese Jamaican girl. So the Chinese Jamaican girl was on the road driving her child, so she didn't have her camera on, but she was like listening in the background. So we go in. Oh, timeout. Mind you, this Asian woman, she's so annoying because in every single class, she always has something to say and she's just talking for no reason. And it always has to be about her. Anyways, I digress. Back to the breakout room. So we in the breakout room, and I'm like, okay, so has everybody watched the video, the TED Talk on Black mental health? And how do you feel about it? So first off, the girl is talking about how she has a friend who's also Chinese and she's going through divorce and how it's not like that's not accepted in their culture and blah 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 blah. But I'm like, okay, but what does that have to do with Black mental health?
Hmm.
So then she's just like, oh, I just think that it affects your mental health. Blah blah. I'm like, yeah, but we're talking about Black mental health. So then the other girl said that she hadn't watched the video yet, so she's gonna watch it. So I'm like, okay, meet back. Tell me when you're done. So when they're done, they came back. First thing the Chinese girl said is basically that she don't like Black people. I was like,
She said it like that?
she didn't say I don't like Black people. She said that when she goes to the store like Costco, that she can't talk to or be around Black people because they're rude and mean. Then she said that Black people just need to work harder and that social determinants of health are just an excuse. So basically, like your income and everything like that, how it affects your health, that's just an excuse. And she's trying to say how like you just need to work harder because look at Obama. He's Black and he did well for himself. So I had to been like, hold up, hold up, hold up. First of all, Barack Obama is half white, half Black. Second of all, Barack Obama was raised by the white side of his family. Third of all, Barack Obama was afforded the opportunities that a lot of white people aren't even afforded. So you cannot be comparing them.
Yeah, and it's also socio and economical factors too, right? His
Well,
mom was super
that's the
educated.
social determinants of
Yeah.
health.
His mother was super educated, father was super educated,
And his
uh,
stepfather.
and his stepfather.
Yeah. So then she's going on to say about how she lives downtown Toronto and how people like a lot of Black people are just lazy and whatever because a lot of them are in the government housing, like subsidized housing and whatnot, and how it's a lot of them. But then I'm like, but you're living in the same housing. So what's your excuse?
Yeah,
She
what's
was
her
getting me
excuse?
so tight and so hot. And then
She was
the
talking
other
like this over an assignment? Like for an assignment?
like
Or
it
was
wasn't
this
an
like a
assignment. It was like we just had to discuss the video.
okay.
But yeah. So then like I'm like sitting there trying to like remain calm, but like obviously I'm like getting whatever. Then I can see the white girl there, and she's like getting thing, and she's saying like, "Yeah, I don't agree with what you're saying." And then the Chinese Jamaican girl was like coming in and out saying whatever. But then I talked to both of those girls after separately on WhatsApp, and the one girl's like her baby started crying, or else she was gonna really lay into the girl. And the other one was saying that like, yeah, she doesn't know how this girl could be in our program because how are you Black people and indigenous people are like a huge group that we will potentially have to be working with mental health and addictions. So how are you in this program if you cannot, if you
Yeah.
don't like this, or you feel like
How are you gonna help people if you're already coming at them with a bias?
then she's saying she studied in the States and how here in Canada is so much better because we're not racist here. I'm like, honey, what do you mean we're not racist here? She used to be in my Indigenous class with me. She dropped it because she said because she's Chinese and English isn't her first language, it was getting to be too much. But I think she needed to stay in that Indigenous class because then she'd learn how racist Canada really is to our Indigenous
Yeah.
people, especially. And
Like
then
I
she
don't I don't understand how you can approach a matter such as like mental health illness and not understand that there's certain factors such as like economic background that can lead to people developing like abuse like substance abuse and like mental health issues.
But it also goes to show that she did not watch the video properly. Because in the
Mhm.
video, it says that obviously people show their anxiety and things in a different way. And a lot of Black people show their anxiety and the the effects of their anxiety through anger and aggression. So if you're saying that Black people are rude and mean and whatever, maybe it's because they're suffering for something.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe they have a problem within themselves that they're trying to deal with, and you being all up on them in the store or whatever is setting them off.
Wait, so is she Chinese Jamaican?
No. This one's just Chinese.
Mm-hmm.
This one's just Chinese, and she's going on to say like, oh, how China has been bullied by so many different countries over the years, and how basically we just need to like get over it, and how like Black people just are complaining and whatever about slavery and how that affects them. And then she's saying the Chinese were slaves here in Canada to build the CP rail. I'm like, they were not treated well, I agree, and whatever, but I wouldn't say that they were full out slaves.
But she's also
And
overlooking the fact that the Chinese government has oppressed so many people within their own country. Like Muslim people have been oppressed within their own country. People
mm-hmm.
can't even pursue the religion that they want to in their country. It's very difficult. They've also oppressed people in Taiwan, in Tibet. There's like so many issues with the Chinese government that she's overlooking.
Yeah. And all she's saying is that how the CP rail, how they were slaves and whatever. And it's like, okay, we'll go about this like if they were in fact slaves.
They were
Them
indentured
being
servants.
They were, but I'm going off of like I'm gonna give her that, okay, you guys are slaves. So if you guys are slaves, it's for this much time. You can't compare that to this much time of American and Caribbean and whoever else slavery.
Mm-hmm.
And tell me that the effects of that are still not being coming out in today's society with people's mental health. As I said about earlier before with the intergenerational trauma, that's a whole lot of centuries of trauma right there.
I mean, even like going back to what she was saying about the Chinese people who were taken to work on the rail, like what you were saying, she's missing the fact that Chinese people within Canada have intergenerational trauma, not from just the train. I want to point to a more like recent example, which would be like World War II, when all the Chinese people in Vancouver and Ontario were transported to camps
Yeah,
because
the
they were
internment
viewed as
camps, which
because they
David
were
Suzuki himself was a part of.
David
He's in
Suzuki,
those camps.
that guy from Star Trek. I can't remember his name. Like the Asian actor from
George Takai,
George
right?
Takei, he was also in one, like he wrote a book about his experiences. Like they were taken from their lives. Like some of these guys were in school and they had to drop out of school because they were being taken to put into these camps for no other reason than the fact that they were Chinese and the fact that Canada viewed them as a enemy of the state after Pearl Harbor. So and that's a recent example that I can tell you people are still suffering from the economic loss, the sudden change of just like having to uproot your life to go live in a camp. But people are still experiencing trauma from that alone to this day, like because those people are still alive. And the fact that she's saying that they just got over it, no, they didn't. Like they did so much work to get the government to be accountable for what they did in World War II, and that's been happening over like the past few decades. It's not a question of them just getting over it and moving on. Like they did things to rectify that situation so it won't happen again.
Exactly.
Which is what so many like African American activists have been doing. Like they've been trying to put in like laws and get institutions set up so that people won't get disenfranchised by the government anymore. If that makes sense.
It makes sense. I couldn't get over that.
It
The
sounds
fact
like
that
she's
this was
not in the right
happening.
program.
And the thing is, it's like I think she was in some kind of art program, and then I don't know if it was just a 1-year program or if like then she just decided to do this. But it's just like, okay, it's like every single day, she always has to talk about her art and like, oh, I hope to do this program so I can be an art therapist at CAMH. And before COVID, I was gonna be a volunteer at CAMH. And in my head, I'm like, getting a volunteer spot or like getting like an into CAMH is such a big thing. And it's like, how is she able to do that when it's like she doesn't even seem properly suited for this program? And it's like, this is not an art therapy program. This is addictions and mental health.
So is she working with CAMH right now?
No, because of COVID, she wasn't able to do the volunteer. Like they weren't taking them anymore.
Yeah, she's not in the right program if she has that type of mentality.
I'm like, I try to be nice and everything, but it's like she talks so much, and then like because like English isn't her first language, and it's like she's still kind of struggling with it. It's hard to like communicate sometimes, and I always get put in her group. Always.
Well, you know, you can speak to the teacher about that as well if you have a problem with this person
But I
and
mean,
it's a
these
legit.
groups are randomized.
Well, I can still say you can talk to the teacher, and if you have a legitimate reason as to why you can't get over, like why you can't work with this person, like just shoot your shot.
Like before, it was just whatever. It's like it was annoying. But then after this, I'm just like, okay, you're saying all this, but do you realize two of the people who are in this group with you? Like,
Because
how are you saying these things so freely with two other people of color in the group? Imagine if it was not.
she's
Imagine
probably
if it's just white people or if it was other Chinese people.
she's probably done the same in a similar instance, but no one called her out on it, so she thinks it's okay. Anika, I think we should wrap up. Let our viewers go to bed.
What time?
It's like 8:30.
It's 8:30.
I'm like, I feel like we're rambling on to too much for our viewers.
I'm like,
and I do appreciate the fact that you guys still tune in.
you're so rude, TC.
She should get paired with you again, because then maybe she'll grow as a person.
Or maybe I will diminish as a person and let loose on her.
That too.
Tell people about themselves.
People like that won't know that they're in the wrong unless someone confronts them on it.
Francha, I had some choice words for her and where she can suck and who she can suck.
Did you actually say
like,
that?
Like her mother.
Did
No,
you
I said
actually?
I have choice words. I withheld.
Next time on WhatsApp, just leave her a voice note.
I don't have her on WhatsApp.
Well, get her number. Tell her how
I
you
don't
feel.
want her number. Because one time, like, okay, this time was 4 of us, but one time it was just me and her in a group. I'm just like, oh my gosh. And I had to do the whole assignment by myself because she just talk and talk and talk. And she's like, oh, like, because I'm Chinese and my English isn't good, blah, blah, can you do it? And she's like, make sure to put my name. Don't make sure to put my name. Did you put my name? Did you put my name? So then I had to do the assignment and put her name on it for us to get these marks.
But she didn't do any work towards it.
I mean, I guess she did some work in that, like, we were trying to discuss this because you know Maslow's hierarchy of needs.
Mm-hmm.
So we had to make like our own hierarchy of needs.
Mm-hmm.
But like in it, she keeps saying like, oh, to put art on there. Like, art does not have to be about everything. Everything does not have to be about art. And she wanted it towards the top.
I mean, I'm happy that she prioritizes her art, but there's other things in life too that you need to take into consideration.
Exactly, because this is supposed to be like an everybody type of thing. She's like, oh, like put that like we need that you need money, but like that you don't do art or whatever for the purpose of money.
Mm-hmm.
I'm like, okay, but is there a way that we can generalize this so that it can be applicable to a wider population? And I'm like,
I want you to be
if
partnered
you're the
with her.
art person, why don't you do this pyramid? Like, why don't you make it all nice and pristine?
Listen, she's taking advantage of you in the fact that she's trying to get the fact that she doesn't know how to speak English properly as sympathy points. Did you see TC's comment?
I just see eyes.
It's just that it must have hurt her to have to
Oh no,
rely on
that's
one
Greg.
person. Oh, it's Greg.
But the gag is she probably doesn't even know.
Do you think she knows you're black?
Probably not.
That's probably why she's so
The
comfortable
way
to
she's
speak
saying
like
these
that.
things.
Yeah, that's probably why she's so comfortable.
Yeah, but same. So what about the Chinese Jamaican girl?
She doesn't think she's black.
But she is. You
But she
could
doesn't think she's
tell.
black. But she doesn't think
Well,
she's black. She
I
probably
wouldn't
thinks
think
she's
that
just
she
like
thinks she's
whatever.
Chinese.
Listen, some people, if you don't confront them on it, they just think it's okay to talk about things like that.
Oh my gosh, TC. You won't even. You'll be at work.
Anika, what's our next book for our next
Whale
discussion?
Rider.
Whale Rider.
Yes.
So that's gonna be a uh, the author is a New Zealand writer, and it's about Samoan culture. I haven't read the book before, but
Maori culture. Maori.
Maori culture, yeah. So we're going to New Zealand next week or the week
Yep.
after.
The
2
29th.
weeks from now, the 29th. That's gonna be the
Greg's
only
also reading that one. Audiobooking it.
audiobook in it. I'm not. It depends on the person who's like telling the story, but like I'm not like the biggest fan of audiobooks.
I like to physically read it.
Yeah, I like to physically read it too because you can always like pick up and you can always just like leave it in the middle of something and pick up right away. But you can't really do that when you're like listening to it. So maybe you want to sign off?
Okay, everybody. I'm going to catch you on November 29th as Sharanja
That's me.
and I review Whale Rider by, I cannot pronounce the name, so I'm not going to try, but it's called Whale Rider. And
Wait, let's actually get the name of the author. Whale Rider book. Witty Ihimera. So Whale Rider by Witty Ihimera.
oh wait, Divvy, you're here, or did you just come in?
Don't put her on the spot like that. Hi, Divvy. But yeah, so
Also,
tune in.
Divvy said that she's going to join us at some point in the near future, so stay tuned for that.
Stay tuned. Guest panelist, Divvy.
Yes. Yes.
All right. Thanks everyone for joining in.
But yes. Well, like goodbye, Divvy. But yes,
Bye,
next
Divvy.
time
Guest
is
panelist.
no, not next time. Next time is the Whale Rider, and it's November 29th. We'll be discussing that 7 o'clock Eastern. Hope to catch you there. Thanks for the support, everybody.
Thank
We
you.
got 5 people in the chat right now. Like, that's amazing. Yeah. Catch y'all on the flip side.
Bye.
Bye.